Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's live edition of Beyond Your Why podcast, Coach Edition. I'm your host, Andrea DeLeon, supporting the Why Institute. Today, we are talking about client breakthroughs, and I'm super excited because we are joined by someone who embodies this work, Reggie Brock. Reggie is a member of our Y professional community. We're super excited you're here. As coaches, we know we've all experienced those moments when clients suddenly have these shifts and something changes for them. Light bulbs go off, behaviors changed, clarity, confidence, something kicks in. And we love those breakthrough moments. That's what we're here for. And we believe at the Y Institute, part of doing that work with clients involves helping them uncover, ignite with their why or their purpose. We have a set of tools. We have the Y operating system discovery that we use here. We share with people to use to help know themselves better and communicate better, use it as a decision making tool, etc. Reggie, I know you have an amazingly successful business coaching business. You guys are going through a brand rebranding
Yeah.
and change to Propel. But tell us a little bit about who you are and what you guys do over in your company.
Yeah. Uh, again, I'm Reggie Brock, and I'm a preacher's kid. And the reason that's significant is a lot of what interested me about the Y Institute being added to my practice was because I believe it opened up something that was very comfortable and usual to me. And that was really understanding people as you lift the hood. My dad was
Mm.
always like that. I mean, like he wasn't just a guy to get up and preach on Sundays and then just you'd see him next Sunday. He really got into people's lives, and that's kind of led me to the practice that I have today, and that is how do we help people unravel things so that they can actually experience what they want out of life as opposed to just accept what has been delivered to them. And so, it's been enjoyable for me to really be able to get into people's life at a deep level. It's not really surface. I'm not really about activities. I'm really about behind purpose and intent and about dreams and about goals and about visions, and it's not really as much about tools as it is what is the things in our life that may be contributing to the lack of performance that we're getting. And rather than looking at surface level issues, we dive deep. And so the Why Institute has been an invaluable tool for me to really open up a different component underneath the hood, so to speak, to really understand people better, them themselves better, and be able to put a plan together that actually leads to progress and stability and fulfillment like they've never had before. And so that's what it's about to me.
Awesome. Okay, Reggie, what is your YOS profile? Before we dive into how you're using this and some things, because you've had
Yeah.
some really good recent experiences. Tell us who you are from from our lens of Y operating system.
Yeah. So, it's funny because when I started looking at this, obviously the first thing I want to know is me. And so for me, I'm a make sense guy first.
Hmm.
So that's my why. My how is better way, and my what is contribution. And so, and it was like a light bulb went on in my head because my wife actually is a pharmacist and she's a right way person, right? And so, she would walk on the scene and just go like, "This is the path. Let's get on it. As long as we stay on it, things are fine." And I would be like, "Okay, that may be the path, but I don't understand. This does not make sense to me." And I can tell you from the jump that this has changed dramatically our relationship and specifically around conflict. So we might really disagree on something, but something that took us 30 minutes to work through, we've now been able to isolate and see how, based upon both of our whys, how we can reduce the conflict to a conversation
I
that
love
becomes
that.
powerful and meaningful and shorter. We're not dragging things on. Like she came home the other night and she was telling me about this thing and she saw this confusion on my face and which she sees a lot and she said, "You don't understand really what I'm saying." Now before that would have offended me, but now that we've again looked under the hood of each other and been like, "Oh, okay, the reason I'm frustrated is because I just don't understand. Doesn't mean the right path. I mean, that right way is not the right path. It's just I don't understand it. And until you can make me understand it and this makes sense to me, we freeze. And so what generally
Mm,
I do is when I freeze, I fight.
okay.
And so now I've started understanding that if I can just make sense of things. Now, I told Gary on one of the conversations we had not long ago, I said, my better way has even made me take the why society and go like, okay, how can I now tweak even this to make it applicable to my practice? And I said, so Gary, don't blame me, blame you. You showed me how to do it.
So you want
And
to
ultimately,
you want a better way the things we're doing here as
yeah,
well.
well, I mean, I can't help but look. When I looked at it, I just went like, okay, how can I make this better in my world? Like
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to change the world. I was trying to change the world I'm in.
Yeah.
And so, how do I make this why? And it was just the missing piece. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. But it was that missing piece to my practice that's helped me to really open up the fullness of the practice in a more meaningful way.
Yeah. Before I ask you other questions, how long have you been married?
37 years.
37 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
there's
she'll tell you
one.
about 32 of them have been really good.
Well, what I love about the way that you talked about this, so apparently you had your wife also take this YOS
Yes.
discovery. Okay.
Hmm.
And so she's right way. What's her next two after right way? Do you
So
remember?
she is trust is her second.
Oh, okay.
And and then mastery is her third. And
Oh my
so
goodness.
yeah, so she's
Opposites really do attract.
yeah. But what's been really interesting to me is the things that didn't interest me before because they're in her have become interesting to me. And
Yes.
it's her why.os has been something that's illuminated my learning
Interesting.
and
Okay.
allowed me to start seeing things beyond just my own peripheral, beyond even my through my own lens. And I think that's one of the powerful things behind this whole program that excites me is that it creates it should create an opportunity for you to expand boundaries and start understanding things a little bit more effectively, because ultimately at the end of the day we're here on this earth together, and
Yeah.
learning to get along better and to communicate more effectively, how to manage conflict more efficiently is critical to our survival as a community and humanity and as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with
Mm,
you. So
yep.
tell me, okay, so walk us through a little bit how you came to know that the Y Institute exists.
So my business collaborator, his name is Chuck Toki, and Chuck runs a great organization, sales and marketing organization called Top Rep.
Okay.
And Chuck is a part of the Genius Network with Gary,
Okay. Got
and
it.
so they met. And Chuck and I, for the and I'll say this, collaboration to me produces things that none of us could do by ourselves. So why wouldn't you want to do it? So when we start sharing ourselves one with the other, we're able to produce things beyond our own personal scope and ability. And so I'm always looking for great collaborations. And so Chuck and I have kind of been looking at each other for a distance for a couple of years. And then one day out of the blue, he calls me and goes like, man, I mean, like wanting to do some stuff together, but we just couldn't figure it out. So one day he calls me, he said, look, man, would you do me a favor and check out this Y Institute? And I said, okay. I said, so I dug into it and immediately it made sense to me. Like, I'm just like, oh, okay. And it just started revealing some things to me that was missing in my practice that would help, I think, unlock life for people differently than even some of the tactics and strategies that I was looking. So Chuck introduced me to Gary. And then I went through, and I'm just the kind that if I get in, I get all in. Like I'm just like, just let's stop talking about kind of the short, the small steps we can take. Just show me where I dive in. And so that's how I found out
That
about the
true
Y
makes
Institute.
sense. If it makes sense, we're full
We're
forward.
going.
If it
Yeah.
doesn't, we're a full stop.
If it makes sense to me, I run hard at it. No big deal. So that's kind of the
Yep.
way I came across it.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, so tell me, I know we met and you're like, this makes sense to me. I'm
Yep.
going all in. And you immediately immediately took this and took it to a team that you work with.
Hmm.
And you had a really interesting experience with that. So tell
Yeah.
us about what happened.
So in my practice always begins with the leadership team because I
Okay.
think everything starts and cascades down from the top. And if you can't, and I've had people call me and say, "Hey, look, I want you to come work with our team, but not our leadership team," and I've declined because there's modeling that has to happen for effectiveness and efficiency to ultimately show up in the rank and file of the organization, and this starts with leadership. So I spoke at an event up in Minnesota, and the owner of a company came to me afterwards. He goes like, "Hey, I want to take a deeper dive into this in terms of, how do we get this leadership team on the same page? We're a
Mm,
$40 million company. Um, and in my space, that's a big company. And so I went in and I spoke, and I could tell there's some interest in, but they lacked chemistry, and they were a group of people very, very individually talented, but refused to collaborate. They just almost couldn't stand being in the same room with each other, and that's not an exaggeration. And
that's
these
not a
people
good,
had
that's not going to help the company, is it?
no, and here's the interesting part of it. They had survived together for 10 years.
Wow.
And they had run successful business for 10 years, but they could not find a place to where they could sit together long enough to even have a conversation, much less resolve conflict.
Yeah.
And so they were very departmentally challenged in terms of their ability not just to communicate across department lines, but even amongst their leadership in those departments. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my career. And so the first thing that we started on was trust. And so, I wanted to find out what was at the root core of their disassociation interest in one another. And it was trust. And
Yeah.
so we then went in and I installed the, YOS, Y.OS. And uh, I don't really use just Y. I
Yeah.
use the OS, the entire operating system, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. But we took that test, and there was you could sit on a call before we did the assessment, and you could, I mean, it's like a grinding of teeth almost. Like, I mean, people just that you couldn't really even carry on a conversation without tempers erupting, and it's because there was so much unresolved issues in their past,
Well, they've
and
been 10
so
years together, a lot of time to build up a lot of animosity,
yeah.
huh?
Yeah. And a lot of resistance and retaliation. And I mean, it was like, I mean, I'd leave those calls every week and go like, how in the world are y'all surviving? And so, and so
Okay.
I put them through the assessment, and I did, a matrix of kind of their all from 1 to 9, all of their whys.
Yep.
And when we got on the call and started walking through this, there was a level of silence on the call that I'd never experienced with them before. They were mesmerized at what they were seeing. It was like I walked them into a room they had never been in. It was like they began to feel things about others that they had never even considered, much less felt before. And it was the vulnerability that entered into that conversation was the beginning of healing for the organization. Like when they started realizing my why is this and yours is this, and then we start doing some comparative analysis of what's energy, what's neutral, what's friction. I started noticing tears welling up in people's eyes. Like it was and
That's amazing.
apologies coming out of their mouths to one another without even provocation, just saying, my God, I'm so sorry. I have misjudged you and I have held this against you. And now I understand why you do this.
It's not
And
because
so,
they're trying to be difficult. It's not
mm-mm,
because it's because it's how they're wired, and how they're wired
exactly.
is how they communicate, how they make decisions, and how they're
Yep.
going to interact.
Yeah. And so if you don't know that, then everything is a crapshoot. But now
Okay.
that we understand each other, they begin to have levels of conversation they never experienced before. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, okay. Have you ever used any other tools with this team? Have you ever done
No,
disc or nothing? Okay, so this is
they've done all that before I came into this.
Okay, so they've already done DISC and
Oh
they've
yeah.
already done some other like all those
Yeah.
other things, and yet they're still having this challenge.
Hmm.
What what was different? What did they say was different about taking the Y operating system
Yeah.
discovery and knowing this about each other? What made it different this time?
Well, I think that's it. It's like this, we took the time not just to go like, hey Reggie, this is your why, good luck. No, we realized that we show
Yeah.
up every day together. Like this group was together every day.
Yeah.
So what was amazingly important was they when they started seeing not just their why, and I think that's a mistake anybody can make. Let's just let me take the why assessment, Reggie. That's a good thing. But if you're in a world where you're not alone, you're interacting with other people, and there's an outcome that you're collectively wanting to gain, not knowing their why slows down the progress to success. And so I think the big thing for this was they finally saw a world outside of their own. They realized that there were people that they were working with that they had misinterpreted, that they'd misjudged, that they were holding resentment against. And now they understood that's just the way they're wired. And so
Right.
what we now have to do is not try to change their wiring, but how do we accommodate not just their wiring, but ours, and how that collaboration can happen. And so how do we move from friction to energy? How do we pair people internally to get the best out of both so that collectively we're moving forward. And so that was the eye-opening thing to me that I'm most proud of for them, is that they started seeing the world outside of their department, outside of their role. They started seeing the world of the people that they were coming and interacting with. Listen, at work, most of us, they still go to a building, and so
Yeah.
they're literally in each other's presence, countenance every day. They're spending more time with those folks at work than they are with their loved ones at home.
Yeah, that which happens so often
Absolutely.
when we have careers and right, high
Yeah.
performing careers, et cetera. So,
And that
um,
was the big shift for me, is they were it was quick. It wasn't like I had to spend 3 hours. I mean, the emotion and the level through the because of the level of vulnerability, and I don't even think it was that as much as just like understanding now. Oh, like, oh, okay. Now I know why they come to work the way that they don't have anything against me. They're not trying to put me in my place. They don't have a bad attitude. That's just the way they're wired.
right.
And they like coming into the room if you're a challenger, and they just like throwing chairs. They like disrupting everything. They like doing all that. And so you've got to
Yeah.
understand that that's the guy coming in the room that you're with. And then he or she needs to understand what your expectations are. And I go back to what I said about my wife. What we're starting to see is this condense, condensing of conflict turning into great communication.
Yeah.
And the time that it takes to get there is reduced dramatically when we understand each other's why, how we show up, what's our internal operating system
Yeah.
create within us to produce every day, with including the people we interact with.
Gotcha. I think that's amazing. Well, we were so excited because you jumped right in with both feet. You put this to a client like very quickly, et cetera. And you came back and shared this story with us and told us about what was going on in the room.
Mhm.
What is your plan or what are you thinking now in terms of with working with this team and
Yeah.
working with future teams? What is necessary for you going forward?
So this has been the missing piece on the front end of my business, because I do deep, 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 deep work. And so it's work that's below the surface, it's root level. And so, it's painful, it's difficult, it's dirty work sometimes. People don't that they don't want to take the time, energy, and effort. And so I would say to a group, hey, let's jump off this cliff with me and trust me that we're going to hit water, not rocks. And they can't see the bottom, but yet they would jump with me. And the why piece made everything else make sense to me. And so my goal now is to add this as the front end starter of any relationship and business that I'm with. And I'll say this, and I'm probably going to get some criticism for it, and I don't mean it that way, but listen, you discovering your why is like really cool. But if you're in a world with other people, you need to take it further. And that is, how do we take our whys, compare it to the whys of the people that we interact with, whether it's at work and at home, and how do we create path to prosperity for that combination? And that's
Yeah.
what I do. So I do why people do what they do, who they do that best with inside of an organization, and what could become of us doing this together. And so
Mm.
it's kind of a progression that I think the why on the front end has helped me with. But I'm a big believer in this. How do we draw all resources into the center? How do we start communicating, collaborating? How do we start? And it starts with why. But when we get that why, how are we internally looking at our business and pairing people properly? See, I
Gotcha.
think this is
Yep.
something people miss. It's like we just we have projects and we throw people on them and they don't get anywhere they're supposed to be. We get frustrated by them. And the fact of the matter is, they weren't built for the pair.
Right.
And
Right.
so this why has given our eyes a great clarity to say, okay, this isn't just about Reggie being makes sense, but when Reggie walks into a pot of people, how does his make sense work with the contributor or a simplifier or a clarifier? And so that we're not trying to keep people from each other, but teach people, even if there's a friction zone between my why and your why. All right, how do we bridge this and how do we draw energy from this when naturally it looks like a conflict?
I love how you say that, and you've described it both in communication with your wife now.
Yeah,
That it's the, oh, my make sense hasn't made sense yet, so I can't get on board with you.
right,
Right? Your right way says this is the right way. You trust this, so you're ahead of me. Help me catch up with you.
right.
Right? So when you did this with the team, what did they start saying to each other or saying
Yeah.
back to you that let you know that they understood this about themselves now?
So the first thing was they acknowledged it, that they acknowledged that some of the friction that had been built was just lack of understanding. And I believe this self-awareness is the first key unlocking door to prosperity. And if
Yeah.
you don't really understand, um, and you're not aware of you and why when you walk into a room, we kind of think that we want the room just to understand us. And the really
It doesn't
interesting
work
thing,
that way, does
it
it?
doesn't.
'Cause there's
It
no
doesn't.
I don't know about you, but I had never found anything that gave me simple words to tell people how I operate best in a way that they could understand. And that was the same thing, was using this to understand how other people. So my guess is that these people working at this company, they were all working towards the same goals. Company sets goals
Yeah.
and everybody goes, yeah, we're working towards those goals. Right? So it's not the goal that they're not aligned with. It's the how each person or department, et cetera,
Hmm.
wanted to work towards that goal
Yep.
wasn't being seen, heard, and understood.
Yeah, and you used a word there that I'm gonna come back on. This word guess. So Propel, my company, is built to take the guesswork out of performance. And why does that? The way I do who and what, it just takes the guesswork out. So rather than us wandering into a room with talented people and just hoping and wishing and guessing our way and how they're feeling, what they think, and how do they do, let's take that out. Let's just take it out. And starting with why, our practice does that. We want to remove the guesswork and give people the opportunity to fully function in their why, understand the whys around them, and then how do we create, not guess, how do we create through intentional practice an ability to do things that moves us all forward, not just me and my silo. And so,
Right.
that's kind of the important feature behind our business right now is how do we go in, and it's whether it's guesswork with leaders, guesswork, it doesn't matter. How do we remove the guesswork so that we can start moving forward with clarity? And when you get clarity, mountains move.
Yeah. How about if people say, no, I'm clear. I've got these people on my team. Like, we've got clear
Yep.
goals. They're spelled out. We've got this. What's usually missing?
So what? So it's just it's the chemistry, connection, and collaboration.
Mm,
You can have people walk into a room who are really talented. I've been in rooms where I'm like, I don't belong in here because these people are far more talented than I am. But what I knew I did well that they didn't was I was willing to share my DNA with someone willing to share theirs from a business perspective so that we could now start building something together we could never get accomplished apart. And so to me, most companies don't have a hiring or a talent problem. They have a connectivity problem, an alignment problem where
yeah.
everybody's getting on the same page. We have the same, not just here's where we're going, but how my contribution affects where we're going. It's
Mm,
meaningful. It matters. I belong here. I come every day because I want to be here, not because I'm getting a check. And that just creates what I call a culture powered by community.
yeah.
And so when people that you can have the you know your vision slapped on every wall and your mission slapped on every hallway that you want, but until people realize I'm a part of something bigger than I am, and until we understand from why all the way down the importance we bring to that organization and it's reciprocated,
Yeah.
we've got one foot out the door just waiting for the next opportunity. So my whole deal is how do we create, number one, how do we take the guesswork out of this stuff, and then secondly, how do we create an environment that's powered by a connected community? Because if you do that, you're going to be able to withstand pressure that most can't, because
Mm,
we're too far apart, we're too separated, we're too siloed for safety. And
yeah.
so that's kind of how I go to market right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What has surprised you most when you took that? What surprised you most?
You talking about for me personally?
Yeah.
So for me personally, it answered a question that I had been asking myself more than any other question in my life, and that is why I do what I do.
Right.
Like I now have a really clear understanding how I'm wired.
Right. So when people say, so I love this question because people say, well, I know my why, right?
Mhm.
And it's, the legacy I want to leave, the grandkids, the kids, the like they tell me
Mhm.
all these external things. When people tell you that, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think I think those are ambitious and good and important, but that I don't think that really. Um, so my question would be: before your kids got here, what was your why?
Right.
Like before you were thinking about legacy, what was your why?
Yeah.
When you were born, there's a wiring that was in you that has now been revealed. And I'm grateful that you want that to be really pointed in the direction of your loved ones and your legacy and all that kind of stuff. But the thing I tell them most is this: look, if you get up every day and can recognize for the first time in your life why you do what you do the way you do it, your life begins to take on a new direction. And that's what happened to me. I'm 66 years old. And this is just like, what? Like, what?
Have you ever seen those memes? I was this many years old when I learned XYZ.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't think your age or your place in the world matters. When that moment comes where you wake up to like, oh my God, this is why I do what I do, trajectory begins to look differently. Your impact looks differently. Everything looks different. And so now before I got on the call, I knew you were contribute was your kind of deal, right? Am I
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
I'm contribute makes sense is my how and
Yeah.
simplify is my what. So for me, it all starts with if I don't feel like it serves the greater good or a
Yeah.
greater good I care about, I'm not even getting on board. It just doesn't matter for me. And for me, it shows up in that what is the work that I'm doing? Who am I doing it with?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if I'm not feeling like there's something good going on, I start to lose that feeling of like, am I like that feeling of being useful in the world,
And it
which is,
shows up in your presence on this call. I mean, I can tell by the way your question, and you may use these same questions with everybody. I don't know, but they're built around a contributor. They're built around somebody who's like, okay, whoever's on this call, wherever this call reaches, how can we contribute something to their life? It just shows up. And knowing
Yeah.
that, it prepped me more than what anything else that you did is like, and I think that's the case and true. I got to tell you one funny story. With one of the clients, and this I've done this with 3 or 4 of my clients now. And one of the things that I woke up, boom, in the middle of the night, just wide open one night, and I thought, this idea came to me. What if we had a library of individual playbooks that just described our why, our how, and our what? That was available to everybody inside of our team. And if those playbooks were been able to be accessed with a by a person who you've not had a conversation with and they
Yep.
knew you before they went into the conversation, what would the dynamics look differently? And I did that, and it's in one little company, and they have had quicker, uh, deeper, more meaningful movement inside just by understanding. Because I mean, it's a big organization, like 70, 80 people, and
Yeah.
sometimes you don't even meet people because they're in different parts of the country.
Yep.
But when they were able to examine each other's playbook
Yeah.
and knew you before we got on the call or the interaction, it's changed the way they've done business. And so I attribute it, in my opinion, so much of this to the why and the society and the coaching you guys have provided. And I think it's going to impact the world I'm in every day I live.
Well, I'm excited for it, Reggie. You got a lot of great things going on. You have a lot of great people you're connecting with, and I love what you're doing. We love what you're doing. We love what your support, and I love hearing your stories. Like we love hearing when you're connecting. One of the things that before we wrap up, what you've mentioned it's not that people need more vision and clarity where the company is going. They need more community in where they are.
Yeah.
So my contribute. So mine is my why. That's your what. Wiring. Talk about just for really briefly. I have a belief that people are dying to be seen, heard, and understood. And I think that's just kind of what you've been talking about inside the company is really give people this tool that helps them see, hear, and understand themselves and their ability to help others. What do you think that benefit creates for that company, not
Yeah.
just in the next 90 days, but where do
Yeah.
you think if they keep doing that, what happens?
So all 3 of those attributes you just shared can be put under one word, and that's belonging, a sense of belonging.
Mm,
And I think when people are seen, heard, what else did
understood.
you say? And
Understood.
understood,
Yeah.
why would they ever want to leave that environment?
Right.
When people, Forbes just did a huge study on why people stay, leave, go, come. And it was an interesting, and I'm not going to bore you with those details, but here's what they said. The number one reason people decide to stay or to go is for one reason and one reason alone. Do I feel like this is where I belong?
Right.
And you can have all the gifts and the talents and the abilities, but if you're not seen, felt, and understood, you've got one foot out the door. You just hadn't found the place to go yet. And so I tell companies this all the time. You're creating a culture that is built around community that doesn't just get people in the door, but knows how to keep them.
Yes.
And so that belonging is what I think separates really good cultures from kind of ones that are iffy at best. And that's one of the things that I believe is so important. Why gives us the opportunity to understand why you show up every day and how can that best be utilized, your contribution be seen, be heard, be understood, and it affect things beyond just you and your ambitions and your goals. It's about us. And once that happens, people stay and they just don't leave.
Got it. I love it. Well, Reggie, we are grateful that you believe in us.
Yeah.
Clearly, you're a great ambassador for the Y Institute, and using the Y operating system with your clients.
Yeah.
We firmly believe so. At the Y Institute, we are on a mission to help 1 billion people
Yeah.
know and live their why, and not just at a superficial level, but like you said, where do I belong? And how do I
Yeah.
belong? And use that as a communication tool, a decision
Mm-hmm.
making tool. I love what you said about it. It takes the time, it reduces the time a conflict exists, into how do we work through this. And I love how you described your ability to see yourself, your ability to see your wife, the great story about the team. That's fantastic. I cannot wait to hear what happens 90 days from now as you guys continue this journey with each other,
Yeah.
and what changes in this leadership team. So you can need to come back.
Mhm.
I'll invite you back. You need to come back in about
Yeah.
90 days and give us an update on this
Yeah.
team.
What a
Um,
great place to be when you know we're not guessing our way through life.
yeah,
Why gives us the opportunity to know details, facts, importance, and it allows us to get in just a different relationship with other people. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to the Y Society, you and Gary as well. So thank you so much for allowing us to be a
absolutely.
part of this.
Absolutely. Well, Reggie, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule and your Montana trip to be with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My name is Andrea De Leon. I'm here on behalf of the Y Institute. We have another cohort. We are training, teaching another group of Y informed coaches how to use this with their clients, get breakthrough results. Purpose matters. People want to know that they're on purpose. They have value. They have a reason and a place where do they belong and how they belong. And if this is something you're interested in, first we like to take you through it as a coach or a consultant. So reach out to Y Institute and say, let me know my why. We want to take you through this first. We love coaches to help this build their personal brand for themselves, then where to point it with their clients. And that's it for today. We'll be back next week edition. We're going to dive into communication and communicating YOS profiles to YOS profiles and where communication lights up or breaks down. So, Reggie, thanks for being here today again.
Thank you so
Everybody, thanks
much.
for tuning in live. We'll see you guys next week.